gosh, y'all. Thank you so much for joining me this week. This is Alicia, and welcome back to the Eating Podcast. I have literally been talking with someone who is like near and dear to my heart. Like, it is so great to have her here on the podcast. Aretha
Mhm.
Graves is here. We have known each other for a long time. Uh, our families have been very close throughout the
Yes.
years. Evansville native, just like me, and I'm just so happy to have you here on the podcast. One, to talk about this amazing program that you have kind of like initiated here with the African American Museum in Evansville, and then also for us to catch up. And we have been, y'all. Like, it has been amazing. So it has been great. So Aretha, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the Eat Me podcast.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And if you know anything about me, I used to be a panel member on a Saturday morning show, and the moderator would always say, Aretha, take a breath. Take a breath. And I'm like, no, I got so much stuff to say. And so, having been in choir, when you have that long note to hold out, and then moderate your flow to make sure. And when you're talking on a panel with men, they don't really break. They keep on talking. So
Right,
when you get the stage, you have to keep on talking to get your point out, because you might not get
right.
another bite of the apple for a little while. So I have well, it's an acquired skill. I was gonna say terrible habit, but it's an acquired skill of talking.
It is definitely, yeah. No, and it's definitely a skill. And I think about, like, at one point I took a speech class in college, and when you were saying that, like, slow down, I was like, oh my gosh, that was always my notes in that class because I was like, just trying to get it all
Right,
out. They're
right.
like, take your time. So trust me, you're preaching to the choir. I totally understand that. Seriously, seriously. Oh my gosh. So for those who may not know, Aretha is also one of the so are you volunteering for the African American Museum or um
Okay, I can tell you the situation about me in the African American Museum.
okay.
For approximately 18 years, I was a board member, and I was
Okay.
one of the initial board members that started off. Our founder, Sandra Matthews, had an inspiration on a trip to South Africa. She had attended a
Mm,
museum, and the museum's history, South Africa's history, according to that institution, started when the Dutch arrived. So it was
mm,
like the folks who had existed there since creation did not exist, and only history that was worthy of being told was once the folks from Europe had arrived. And she was struck because
right.
she had come back to America after her missionary trip and found out the Lincoln Gardens was going to be demolished. And
Mm,
some other new and modern housing unit was going to be put up. She was born, and when I say born, no hospital right there in the bed. She was born in the apartments
right.
of the Lincoln Gardens. And so they were near and dear to her
Wow.
heart, and she grew up there with her mother and father. And so she had an epiphany that she needs to preserve the Lincoln Gardens and the stories that they had before they fall the way of this museum in South Africa. And so Sandra
Oh,
Matthews had long been a mentor of mine. And so she had asked me, to become part of the African American Museum. And that was back in the early 2000s. And I've been working with them ever since. The museum actually had its official opening 2000, late 2007, 2008. And I was on the board
mm-hmm.
then. And part of my responsibility was going to the library, going to the directory. The directory well, on that shelf, it started in 1945. And I would look up because you had different elders on the board, and they would say, well, yeah, if you go down Lincoln, you run into this business. No, man, that business didn't start until 10 years after this business. Well, all of these businesses were on Lincoln, but at different times. So we got to get the
Right.
time straight because we have a timeline there at the museum. So who's
Right.
going to go to the library and figure out what time this business appeared on Lincoln Avenue and what time this other one? And so
Right.
I went, and looked at so many directories from so many years. And
Right.
it told me that, you know, you listen to I know you've heard these stories before. You listen to Evansville in its heyday about Lincoln Avenue and how
Yeah.
folks from smaller cities, Henderson and the surrounding counties, used to come to Evansville because Evansville was the place to be. And Evansville was kind of like on the Chitlin
Right.
circuit because there are a lot of famous African American blues singers and rock and roll singers even that used to make Evansville a stop. And as a young person, I was 20 years younger back then. What? Wait, what? Evansville? For what? You know, but once
Right.
I got into those directories and realized how many businesses, how many, you know, nightclubs, stores, department stores, dentist office, and all these things occupied less than 10 blocks of Lincoln Avenue. Like, okay, I can start to
Mm.
see it now, and it's really
Yeah.
hard to imagine it, and you have to kind of sit with your elders and let them spin the stories and let your imagination take you. Okay, and it was so this and that. And that's how I fell in love with the concept of the Evansville African American Museum. Now, out
Mhm.
of that came the Soul Writers Guild. And Sandra, after 10 years, Sandra is always, she's a founder, but she's president emeritus. She withdrew as president and started working on something called the Soul Writers Guild. And that's a kind of creative incubator where we lend positive feedback, constructive criticism to young beginning writers. Everybody, people who like to write have a group of stories or snatches of poems, say in a trunk or in a shoebox up under their bed. We encourage them to go ahead
Right.
and become published authors to share the different perspectives, many different perspectives of African American life in Evansville and the surrounding areas. And so that's how
Right.
the Soul Writers Guild was born. And part of the Soul
Wow.
Writers Guild, we ended up being the host for Juneteenth, for Kwanzaa, for Dr. Caldwell, Dr. Caldwell's lecture series, and for an annual book fair. And, so
Mm.
those four events we have annually. We have poetry reads, we have just different interpretive exercises, celebrations, and we do things for Juneteenth. But the project that I was talking to you about was a new project I was coming up with called a comic celebration, where we're
Yes.
still in development, but what it is similar to a Comic Con, but on a smaller scale. It's a BIPOC Comic Con, and I think the BIPOC part is important because what we want to focus on and what we want to give the young kids in our community a chance to focus on is the superheroes and villains of color, and not just
Mhm.
African
Yeah.
American, but to expand that because the other ethnicities or religions or whatever are few and far between. So we realize that it might be difficult for to have like a Muslim Comic Con, the Marvel Comic Con, if there's only just one or two
Right.
characters. So we just went on ahead and lumped everybody together. And I think that would be wonderful, for folks, young people, to portray and make costumes of their favorite Marvel, DC, whatever character, and to celebrate that. And you see the excitement that people have. I'd share with you before. As in my mid 50s, still watch. I watched Iron Man this morning. And I think Ant Man
Right.
came on FX. They play it like all Friday, but today's Thursday and they're still playing it. So I'll look in,
Right.
and be watching some of that. And I've watched it so many times. I said,
Right.
there ought to be opportunity for the young people in Evansville and the surrounding areas to celebrate that. Because it's still going strong. Superman, and the thing about it is, I sat down and talked to somebody. I do believe, and rescue me if I'm wrong, that even Black Panther. is older than me. So
Yeah.
I want to say he's about 60 years
Mm.
old. It's just been brought to the
Right.
screen a few years ago, but he's decades old. His character and the development of the birth and development of his character was way back, I want to say close to the civil rights era. And
Mm.
Storm or Aurora, she's decades old, so it's not that any
Right.
of these characters are brand new. It's just they're being seen in a new light with the remake of some of these comics turned into movies. So it's
Right.
not like I said, it's not any. Some of the characters are new. We mentioned Echo, which is a protege of Kingpin, and Miss Marvel
Mhm.
that they did a twist on and made her Muslim American. But a lot of these characters are, like I said, decades old, mid 50s, 60s, and Superman is what, at least 100, when you think about it.
Right.
So I think it's a good opportunity for young people to go ahead and express their love of these characters. And I also want to bake in some Black speculative fiction. You know, the
Yeah.
concept that people of color had greatness almost to the point of scientific magic, and they were headed toward a higher sense of technology and modernity before the interruption of, say, colonization, slavery, the Opium
Yeah.
Wars, uh, Christendom when they were converted. When you look at Aztec,
Right.
Inca, and Maya civilizations, when you look at, and when I said Opium Wars, you have to look at the Chinese and what they were doing, not only with gunpowder, but also with medicine. You
Right.
know, the
Mm.
concept of science with time, timepieces and just all kinds of stuff. And we went back and forth with Egypt. They're still trying to find an explanation that the black people in Africa weren't responsible for the technologies and government and inventions that they see inside of these pyramids. They want to
Right.
attribute it to somebody who came from outer space and gave it to them. And
Right.
so I think we need to add more emphasis to how great our past was to give kids that living example, historic example of what people who look like you did. And hey, you got a superhero right inside you right now. So all we needed to
Oh.
do was wake it up and pull your coat onto whose you are and where you came from, you know. And so that's what Shuri's mom said to her. Black Panther's mom said, "Show them who you are." When it came on down to
Mm.
it, show them who you are and where you came from, whose you are. And so you have to internalize that. Oh,
Right.
okay. And we did what? Okay. And they haven't came up with an explanation for that yet, and they still struggling with it. And these pyramids were built. These
Right.
were old pyramids, ancient pyramids when Jesus walked, and they haven't figured out. Man today hasn't figured out what was going on back then and how they're even lined
Mm.
up. What? Okay. Okay, I can
Right.
dig it. I can dig it, and then go from there. You guys take what
Right.
was 10,000 years old that still baffles modern technology and go from there. When you got that as a springboard,
Right.
I think it's easy to tap into your superpower history. You just have to be awoken to it.
Right.
And so hopefully we'll get that out of the kids. I've got a few months because it's taking place June 2026. But to just be able to articulate that and hopefully awaken a sense of wonder in kids and for them to see the potential in themselves, to have fun, but to also see the potential in themselves to go forward. You know, we've got a real
Yeah.
exciting
No, I.
author from
Uh-huh.
Atlanta, and I won't mention his name because contract hasn't been signed, but we're really excited about having
All
him.
right.
Next time you talk to me, I'll be able to tell you. But it's really exciting
Yes.
because Black speculative fiction is this author's thing, and he's if all goes well, scheduled to appear virtually can't wait. Can't wait because I know he's going to come with wonderful things. I've read so many of his books. But anyway, that little
Yeah.
teaser
Yeah,
right
no, that
there.
is amazing. No, I love it. And listen, as you were saying all of that, I was thinking, okay, I love the fact that this opportunity is for the
Yeah.
kids, right? And the kids get the opportunity to one, experience this type of magic, not only within themselves, but just within their community to realize there's other like-minded people like
Right,
them
right,
that
right.
would be
Look,
interested in something like this.
hey,
But I think what else
when you throw that
right.
gang
But I think another
sign,
thing that's
people
beautiful
know what you mean. The people who
right.
know, and hey, let me
Right.
straighten your viewers out. It's not a gang sign. This is the greeting that Spock gave on Star Trek. And for me, it's a
Right.
universal sign. If you recognize this, then you're a nerd. Then you're scientifically sci-fi inclined, and nothing else needs to be
Right.
said. And I got in a conversation. I said, well, and I've worked with so and so, but I know he knows because, and she said, oh, okay. And the other girl said, well, wait a minute, what was that? What was that? And we kind of looked at each other and looked at her. He's a nerd. And they're like, oh, okay. I was trying to figure out what y'all was doing. And it was just telling on her because she wasn't. And so me and the
Right.
other friend of ours kind of
Right.
looked at each other and wink, wink, nod, nod. That's like a secret handshake for nerd
Right.
talk.
No, I love it. I love it. But no, what I was going to say was like, I love that it's for the kids, but I also love the fact that this can be an opportunity for also
Girl,
adults
we won't be able
that
to keep the
that are
grown people away.
into
We won't be able to keep. We've
exactly.
already tossed that around in the meetings that we're going to have different categories and different sections, for folks because like me in my 50s, there'll be somebody else that won't be able to stay away. You'll advertise it as family fun and it'll be somebody, 50 something, 40 something that and that's a terrible stereotype to say that these folks might live in uh, rooms by themselves or somewhere closed away or are dedicated to their books
Right.
more than they are to public interaction. But hey, hey, for folks who enjoy reading, and that's getting to be a dying art. And for folks who enjoy fantasy and comics,
Yeah.
hey, welcome, welcome, welcome. Right. And
Right. And I love
I
that.
love I love the
I
fact
love the fact
also
also that at this
point
point
you guys are
you
also
guys are also
encouraging like
encouraging
the
like the
idea of
idea of
reading. Yeah,
reading
yeah,
and
yeah.
and,
And it can
and
be
it can
something
it
as
be
simple
something
as
as simple as a
to
comic book to
start.
start,
Oh, girl. In the like I said in the Aretha verse, what we're going to do is have an essay contest and have the kids go ahead. Don't ask me what the subject matter is going to be along the line of black speculative fiction and
Yay.
intersecting with comics. But for the folks who win the essay contest, we're going to give them an opportunity to present at the comic celebration. So yeah, we're going to fold in some education in there. I'm fortifying this celebration with as much cultural education as possible and for it
Mm.
to still be fun because hey, if you didn't already know, that's my mission, So we'll make it look
Right.
like a celebration and it'll be wonderful and fun, but I'll always be trying to teach something and always be trying to turn people onto the knowledge of their greatness, whether or not it's theirs or their neighbors or, their best friends. Like, oh, wow, I didn't know those folks did. I didn't know people did that. And, you come to think of it. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So what can you do? What you getting ready to do? If your
Right.
folks did that, what you getting ready to do? And somebody look at them, well, what are we getting ready to do? I better get out here and do something, because when
Right.
you have talented people in your family, that puts pressure on you. Well, what can you do? Show us what you can do. And that's all I can
Right.
do, to let these young people know that you have talented people in your family, in your historic family, and we're expecting great things of you. Girl, don't get me to talking.
Yes.
Don't get me to talking.
No, I love it. I love it because I feel like growing up in Evansville, there were so many amazing people that were guiding us to greatness. And I love the fact that this is still a thing that's
Oh yeah.
happening. You, it's beautiful.
Right, right, right. And it's crazy. I think a lot of people sleep on Evansville, but
Yeah.
with the development of the African American Museum, we were the first in Indiana to have one. And other cities have one, but it's not a permanent structure. Sandra, in her genius at in political relations and business relations, was able to acquire a section of the Lincoln Gardens before it was completely demolished. We found a historical fact that Eleanor Roosevelt had visited this housing projects because it was the second in the nation. The first was in Indianapolis. So it had that historical
Wow.
value, and she was able to acquire it from the city, and before they demolished the rest of it. So we restored that, and people go by and actually think it's still apartments when really it's been hollowed out and renovated. And they go in there and find out things they never knew they never knew. There have been so many
Right.
wonderful first, and there have been so many wonderful people that came through or raised in Evansville. And off the top of my head, I think of Ron Glass, who at one time was our
Yes.
ambassador, and anybody who knows anything about Barney Miller, or what was it called, Death at a Funeral. He played
Yes.
one of the main character's uncles or something or another, and he's played in several movies before he passed. And he came to Evansville several times. He has family members here, and he agreed to be our ambassador, and he was instrumental in us finding a lot of funding and bringing notoriety to the fundraising part of it. And it's what his contribution was wonderful. But when you talk about the first African American ambassador, Dr. Denby, you know and he was a dentist
Hmm.
here in Evansville, and a lot of the fraternities and sororities, amazingly, were in Indiana or Vanderbilt County. When you talk about Albert Cox,
Wow.
the first African American man who achieved a doctorate in mathematics, taught at Lincoln High School, and it's just so many different things. And these are things that folks don't know about, or when they talk about
Right.
Lincoln High School, and during the Thanksgiving break, they used to Tuskegee used to come up from the South, and they used to have a football game, a football tournament on Thanksgiving. And this is according to Sandra.
Wow.
And one of our original board members, Mr. Miller, had found had rescued a trophy of this game because Evansville won, and it's on display in the museum. And I keep telling people, go and look at it, and it's a player, posing with the basketball on top of a globe, and it's gold color. I said, you'll see a little silver by his sock. And Mr. Miller told me that he had to solder it because it was in two pieces when he found it in the dumpster. He had to solder it back together. And so the silver is where he
Wow.
used a paper clip and a soldering gun to reattach it, you know? And somebody, grandkid, whoever, didn't know how valuable it was and chucked it off into the dumpster, and they had to retrieve it, and it was in two
Right.
pieces. But it's just things like that, that have immeasurable value. And we've been able to retrieve some of those things. And I wanted to also recognize Evansville currently has an African American female mayor, Stephanie Terry, and
Yes.
only the second in Indiana history. Um, oh man, and I'm not even going to stumble around with this woman's name, but she was up in Gary, and she was the first,
Okay.
and like recently, in the last 20 years or so. And we have
Okay.
usually we have the one African American member of the city council. We've got two now, as well as on the school board. Karen Ragland and I want to say Melissa Moorhead Moore are members of the school board.
Hmm.
So, I think we're doing well. We have a U.S. representative for
Right.
Indiana, Alex Burton. He's doing wonderfully, and
Right.
we're not the most progressive, but we're a far stretch from where we used to be. This is the city that
Right.
even after the integration of schools, the NAACP in the 70s, in the early 70s, had to sue because they hadn't integrated. And so
Right.
from there to the second African American female mayor in the state, I think that's a stretch. That's it progress. That's advancement. I love that, and I love being a part. I was a board member for, like I said, nearly 2 decades, and I'm still active on the Soul Writers Guild. So still able to be
Right.
a contributing factor to the things that are happening in the Evansville African American Museum.
I love it. And I do. I love that things are still just like rolling along at Evansville. And like you said, it's not the most progressive, but in considering where things
Right,
were,
right, right, right.
this is huge. Because even I remember when Mayor Terry won, or even before she won, when she was actually running, I was just like, "What world are we in? Like, what is this? Is
Yeah,
amazing
yeah.
that she's even a
Right.
contender,
Well,
right?"
she had been county council. She had been a member of the county council for quite a while before her run for mayor.
Uh huh.
And before that, she had been the executive director at Carver at its senior care facility. So she has,
Okay.
she earned her chops, as far as managerial skill and leadership. So she had, she's very active. Oh, let me get it right for red one. Delta. Uh, you know, yeah,
Yes.
and is it Delta Sigma Theta? Yes, with the sorority.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. She's very active with them, but she's a leader all around, and just a really good person. I said, oh, they picked a good one because all the time that I've known her, I've never, and that's how Evansville's a small place. Oh yeah, and yeah, she
Oh
got
yes.
pretty much a spotless record, and so and she's a genuinely good person and a church member of mine. So, uh,
Right.
it was wonderful to see her get that win. And she's done a lot of wonderful things in Evansville. Walnut Street has gotten a redo, and the sidewalks are wonderful, and just all kind of different things she's done over the city. I don't want to start talking about them and mess around and miss something major, but she's making a difference.
Right.
She's making a difference.
And that alone is just so like empowering, and it just makes you feel so good because it's like what we were talking about earlier. We hear the different stories from our elders, growing up and just hearing about the different um issues that they were dealing with being black
Right,
in
right, right.
Evansville,
And
but still like thriving and doing their thing, but at the same time knowing that the
yeah.
struggles, and now seeing how like things are moving in the right direction. I love it.
hmm And that story I shared with you before we were on air about the Greyhound, and just to tell
Yes.
you where Evansville was, and um, when the Greyhound was traveling from north to south, and they made their stop in Evansville, it is said that um, that's when the bus driver let everybody know that they would have to do segregated seating. So no matter where African
Yeah.
American and other people of color were seated, they would have to go to the back of the bus because Evansville is right upon the border of the Ohio River, and the Ohio River separates Indiana from Kentucky. So after that, they would be going down south into segregated states. And so I've had a few elders tell me that, traveling south Folks would be coming from Chicago, Detroit, whatever, and would come, and Evansville was the stop right before you cross the Ohio River Bridge, where they would have to change their seating in order to be in compliant with,
Wow.
segregate Jim Crow laws, and to go from there.
Right.
And so a lot of people have said, that air of Jim Crow South had permeated into Indiana. Girl, we can do a talk about Indiana because
Right.
I've done some studying about that too. Even though it was a free state,
Right.
doesn't mean that African Americans were welcome. A lot of times when the
Right.
river was either frozen in January and February, or if it was low enough to cross in July and August, a lot of people
Uh,
made their way to from Kentucky and Tennessee. But around that time in the
mm.
1800s, they also had a Back to Africa movement in Indiana. And a lot of the folks that escaped to freedom to come to Indiana would be encouraged to be shipped to Africa. And they had not an exchange because folks didn't really come back. They shipped folks out from
Right.
Indiana to Liberia. So Indiana and Liberia,
Yes.
the state of Indiana and the country of Liberia, have a relationship from back 200 years ago, because they would have black people come, you know, uh, escaping slavery, but they wouldn't necessarily stay. A lot stayed, of course, and a lot went
Wow.
further north,
Right.
but there was a Back to Africa movement here in Indiana where a lot of African Americans went from here to Liberia in Africa.
Oh my gosh. We listen, we definitely have to talk again.
Girl, it's something. It's
Listen,
the things you never knew you never
this is a
knew.
first of all, that's
The
wild.
things you never
I
knew you
had
never
no
knew. Right,
idea.
right, right.
Right. First of all, okay, y'all that are listening, I need to let you know something. Because Aretha and I, we've known each other for a long time, but she hit me up and she was like, "Girl, what are we going to talk about?" I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Like, you are a wealth of knowledge."
Yeah, insufferable know-it-all. Try to be a wealth of knowledge in a city of less than 200,000. And then, oh God,
Right.
there goes Aretha again.
But you,
And you go to town halls and meetings and things. Well, and they're like, you just hear this sigh. So I'm like, oh Lord, she getting ready to go run through the history of the universe down to the one point she's trying to make. Yes, I am. Yeah,
and I love that.
well, it's good that you love it, but I think it gets tiring on other people, on my friends and neighbors. I'm sure it does, and just the opportunity to share with you and to talk to somebody who wants you to talk and enjoys talking, and that's great. And I think a lot of
Yes.
people are put off too because public speaking is a struggle for everybody, for a lot of people. And,
Right.
they tell you in
Right.
psychology class that folks would rather get bit by a snake or shot or anything else than stand up and talk in front of people. I don't think I
Right.
was born with that gene. Um, it's
Me
it's not a
either.
problem, and a lot of
Right.
people are not happy that you do it so easily, and they would rather,
Yeah.
be hit across the head with something, or that, and oh,
Right.
girl, and you just get up there and just talk in front of anybody, right? Yeah.
Right.
And they don't love you for it, and
Right.
so you have to take your time. You have to bite your lip. I write a lot because I want to talk a lot, and some spaces don't allow you to talk, so you can write
Right.
uninterrupted. And if you can fling it on out there and it feels kind of cathartic, you've gotten it out of your system, this big
Yeah.
thought that you had. But, mm, I have to learn. It's becoming a struggle because when you get in your mid 50s, you get that I don't really give a whatever, and y'all gonna have to live
Yep.
with and what, and
Right. Right. Right.
but I try to be mindful of other people's experiences and their tolerances
Yeah.
and all that good stuff on good days.
On good days, I love that. On good days, I love that. Oh my gosh, Aretha, this was amazing. Thank you. No, I'm serious.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it,
Thank
you
you
know.
so
And
much.
I like repping my
I'm
city. I
glad,
like
and I hope.
repping my city. I could have, been
Yes.
to Atlanta. I have been to Atlanta. When I had my job with the Community Action Program of Evansville, shout out to Alice Weathers.
Uh,
She
yeah. Oh, Miss
bless her heart,
Weathers.
she tried to train me. And so she sent me to these different places, Philadelphia, New Orleans, Phoenix, Arizona.
Right.
Do you know what? She sent me to Phoenix, Arizona, and I marched with Hispanic folks. Puebla, you need a muscle vencida and demonstrated because something is happening back. She said, "That's not what I sent you for." Oh, okay. Oh my God, I had such a good time. I
Right.
went to a Mexican restaurant. I said, "Look, I'm getting ready to go struggle with our people, La Raza. So I need to know how to get this right." I said, "How do you say this? Because when I get up, I don't want to struggle with it. So go on ahead." And they looking at me like, "You
Right.
about as crazy as I don't know what, but I'm gonna teach you how to say this." And when I got up there and the word, "La Puebla Unida, jamás a la vencida," and then, girl,
I love it.
I try to be good, but it's almost like Tourette's. I can try to be good, but
Right.
it just makes the bad that much bolder and louder when it does erupt. And so I really don't try to control it as much anymore because I just a steady
Right.
stream of good trouble I find is better than trying to
Yes.
hold it in, because when it holds it in, it's almost like a shook up bottle pop. Okay, we can do this,
Yep.
but as soon as that cap comes off, ain't no telling what's gonna come out of my mouth. I can shock y'all a little
Exactly.
bit at a time, or y'all can try to make me quiet for a little while. But when it comes out, oh Lord have mercy. It's gonna be grown men blushing. It's
Right.
gonna be
Exactly.
people clutching their pearls. Oh well.
Right. Right.
And then, in the
Oh
city,
my gosh.
all you have to do is know who my father was, and that helps me, you know,
Right.
because he was a
Right.
charismatic man who often shot from the hip. And, because he was charismatic, he was able to say bold and shocking things and get people to laugh. And I've learned to master that art.
Right.
You can shock people, but have them laugh and smile. Smile while you're doing it, and you'll get away with a little bit more. Don't be just angry and
This
shocking
is
and,
true.
and bold, because, oh no, that's turning folks off. You make them laugh at first and then say something like, "Oh, did she just really say that? Oh my God, but she sure was funny."
Right. Exactly.
Yes, yes,
I
yes.
love it. Oh my.
Girl, I don't want to run
Oh
over
my
the
gosh.
time.
Thank you
Look,
so much.
no problem.
No, you're good. You're good. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This was amazing. You have to come back,
Oh yes,
please.
yes, yes. I want to come back and tell you what the after was, and let you know how this thing
Yes.
went, and be able to share that with you, and maybe be able to talk to some of these young people. I want them. I'm really working to, if I can touch just a few of them. You know what? Before I went to that, I was this,
Yep.
this, and that. But girl, after that, I decided I was gonna get in the and I'm college bound, or I went and learned a trade and I did this, this, and that. That's
Right.
what I want to hear. If I hear that, then I can go lay down in peace somewhere. You just have to be out there. I,
Yes.
I have to be impactful the same way the folks were impactful to me. You get charged with that
Yes.
responsibility, and that's what you have to do. But it's
Yes.
been
And
wonderful.
you're doing
It's
amazing.
been a wonderful ride.
Yes.
But thank you so much for
I
having me.
love it. You are so welcome. This was amazing. Thank you again.
No problem. No problem. I
Oh my
enjoyed
God.
myself.
You're welcome. I love it. And y'all, thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Eat Me podcast. This was amazing. I will see y'all next week. This was awesome. Thank you so
No
much.
problem. No problem. I enjoyed myself. This was fun.